Deep in the heart of India, hidden by fog and old secrets, are a few small villages, Kaliganj, Shivpur and Bhootgarh, names that scare even the bravest people. These villages, surrounded by thick forests and tall hills, share a dark secret. It's called the Curse of the Villages, and people whisper about it in fear. For many years, villagers have lived under this curse, afraid of what might happen. Stories of people vanishing and scary ghosts are part of their lives, making them believe the curse is real. Every town has its scary stories. Kaliganj is always quiet. Only the sound of faraway bells breaks the silence at night. In Shivpur, shadows move just out of sight. If you hear leaves rustling, it means something you can't see is there. Bhootgarh, the ghost fortress, has an old, empty temple. People say there's a bell inside. It rings when danger is close. It's a bad omen. These stories tell us this land is trapped by something old and evil. The curse is marked by countless tales of mysterious disappearances. Many have ventured into the cursed forests, never to return. In 1967, a group of woodcutters vanished, their tools found in a perfect circle around scorched earth. In 2002, researchers armed with scientific equipment disappeared, their gear found damaged and covered in a strange substance. These vanishings are chilling reminders of the forest's unforgiving nature. The curse's reach is insidious, swallowing those who dare to challenge it. These disappearances are chilling chapters in a story that spans centuries. Locals believe malevolent entities guard the forest, punishing trespassers. The curse weaves itself into daily life, with villagers living in perpetual unease. But a glimmer of hope emerges as a handful of individuals dare to venture into the heart of the mystery. Their journey will challenge their beliefs and test their courage. Their quest for answers will unravel a story more terrifying and tragic than they could have imagined. Our journey begins in Kaliganj, a place shrouded in oppressive silence. Nestled in a secluded valley, Kaliganj feels eerily detached from the outside world. The village is small, with weathered stone houses huddled together against the encroaching darkness. Even during the day, an unsettling stillness hangs in the air. Birds are absent, as if nature itself is holding its breath. The villagers move with measured slowness, their faces etched with a lifetime of living with the unseen. Kaliganj has a spooky story, a story about bells that ring at midnight. When it gets dark, everyone in the village goes inside and locks their doors. Then, when the clock strikes 12, a loud, sad bell rings out across the village. Nobody knows where the sound comes from, a gap 2s. Some people say it's a warning from ghosts. Others say it's a sad, sad song. But one thing is for sure, the midnight bells are creepy. They remind everyone in Kaliganj that something strange is happening, something they can't see. Okay, so next we go to Shivpur. It's a village, but it's different. Here, the shadows, they hide things. It's not like Kaliganj. In Shivpur, you hear whispers, little noises like rustling leaves. The forest around the village, it feels like it's alive, like it's watching you, whispering about you. The people who live there, they're always looking over their shoulders, eyes on the trees. They don't talk loud, just whispers. They don't want to disturb something. Gap 2s. They think the forest is full of old spirits, really old, and these spirits are angry. Something bad happened a long time ago, something they haven't forgotten. At the heart of Bhootgarh's ruins lies an ancient, abandoned temple. The temple's walls are faded and peeling, consumed by vines. Inside, the air is heavy with damp earth and decay. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the gloom, casting long shadows. In the temple, a large bronze bell hangs motionless. Villagers whisper that on certain nights, the bell tolls, a harbinger of doom. For many years, the curse of the villages has been a mystery. People don't understand it. A group of people drawn by this mystery come to these spooky places. Ramesh Deshmukh, a reporter who has seen it all, doesn't believe in the curse. Priya Sharma, a history expert, thinks the curse can teach us about India's past. Pandit Mahesh, a priest from the area, looks for answers about the curse in old religious books. Arun Mehta, a photographer who takes pictures of animals, wants to take pictures of whatever is causing the curse. Priya is drawn to the old ruins in the area. These crumbling buildings whisper stories of forgotten empires and lost civilizations. Priya Sharma: I don't think the curse is something supernatural. I think it's a mark left by something bad that happened long ago, something so terrible that we still feel it today. I'm good at understanding old languages. I love studying the faded writing of forgotten times. Priya thinks of the curse as a language, a mix of symbols, myths and stories passed down through generations. Priya Sharma: if I can understand this language, if I can put together the pieces of the past, I think I can solve the mystery of what's happening now. I can bring light to the darkness that has scared these villages for so long. I'm very careful in my work. I spend hours in libraries reading old books, comparing local legends, looking for clues to solve the curse. Priya goes into the spooky forests with her notebook and camera. She's determined to find the truth, even though she's a little scared too. Arun is a man of science. He likes facts and proof. He thinks the villagers' stories about ghosts and spirits are just misunderstandings. He believes their fears come from old stories and legends passed down over generations. Arun Mehta: I'm really interested in those people who disappeared. I want to find out what really happened to them. I've put my cameras and sensors all over the place, hoping to catch something on film. Arun is very careful with his work. He writes down everything he finds, like changes in temperature, strange noises, or even the smallest movement on his cameras. He then studies everything, looking for clues or patterns. He wants to find proof to explain the mystery. Even though he doesn't believe in ghosts, he's keeping an open mind. He's ready for any possibility, even if it means changing how he sees the world. Deep in the heart of the village's curse, a scary rhythm plays out. It's the chilling stories of people who disappeared in the dark, cursed forests. These aren't just spooky campfire tales meant to give you goosebumps. They're real fears, etched into the minds of the villagers, passed down through generations like a scary heirloom. Each missing person makes the mystery deeper, adding more fear to the tension hanging over the land. These are stories of everyday people. Farmers working their fields, kids playing near the woods, travelers looking for shelter from a storm. They went too far, tempted fate, and vanished without a single clue. The dark forests swallowed them whole. Some disappearances are so old they're only remembered in whispers, the details lost to time. Others are more recent, the pain of loss still fresh on the faces of loved ones. Every story, old or new, reminds us that the forests around Kaliganj, Shivpur and Bhootgarh are dangerous. They're powerful places where the rules of nature are bent, and what's real and what's not gets blurry. Hey, everyone, let's talk about a really spooky story. A story that even people who don't believe in ghosts find creepy. It's about the Woodcutters of Bhootgarh. Back in the summer of 1967, 5 guys, all expert woodcutters from a nearby village, went into the forest near Bhootgarh. Their axes were shiny in the morning sun, and you could hear their laughter in the trees. They didn't know something scary was waiting for them. These men were a common sight. They knew the forest really well. They chopped wood for the nearby villages, so people could keep warm and cook food. They knew the forest's secrets, or at least they thought they did. They had worked in the woods for years, and they were all good friends. That day they went deeper into the forest than they usually did. They wanted to find some good teak trees. Teak wood is really strong and beautiful. They worked all day chopping down trees. You could hear their axes along with the birds singing and the leaves rustling. When it started to get dark, they packed up their tools and got ready to go home. They were probably thinking about their families and a warm fire. Gap 2. They never made it back to the village. It's 2002. Technology is booming. New discoveries are happening all the time. It feels like science can explain anything. But in the Indian countryside, old stories and mysteries still have power. That's where our story takes us. A group of researchers from a famous university in Delhi decide to visit the cursed villages. They want to prove that science can explain everything, even these spooky legends. And their leader is Dr. Vikram Singh. He's a famous anthropologist. He's known for being very careful and logical. He thinks the curse is a puzzle he can solve. He wants to understand how people's beliefs and nature work together. He puts together a team of experts, a plant scientist, a rock scientist, someone who studies the mind, and a local guide. They all think the curse isn't real. They bring lots of fancy equipment, cameras, sound recorders, things to measure energy, and weather tools. They plan to record everything. They're sure they can find the truth. These scientists are very smart, and they've studied for years. They think they're too smart to be scared, but they don't know how strong the curse really is. Deep in the quiet village of Shivpur, surrounded by tall bamboo trees and old banyan trees, lives Savitri Devi. Her life is sadly connected to the curse. Her wrinkled face shows the deep sadness she carries, a sadness shared by many others who have lost loved ones to the dark, cursed forest. Savitri's son Arun disappeared one ordinary night. The air was thick with the smell of jasmine, and the monsoon clouds were gathering. Arun was a happy young man, always smiling. He dreamed of a life bigger than their small village.
He went out that night to help a neighbor. He was always kind and helpful. He said he wouldn't be gone long. The wind carried his words away like a whispered promise. He never came back.
Savitri remembers the moment she knew deep down that something was very wrong. The usual quiet of the night felt different. It was heavier, scarier, like the air was holding its breath. Then she heard it, a sound that made her shiver. It was a sound that everyone in the village feared, the faraway sound of a woman crying. Her sad cries floated on the wind from the deep, dark part of the cursed forest. Ramesh Deshmukh, the reporter who didn't believe in any of this, starts to feel pulled into the mystery. At first he was doubtful, trying to protect himself from the fear and spooky stories everyone told. But as he learns more, as he listens to the quiet whispers of the villagers, as he puts together the pieces of so many broken lives, his doubt starts to fade. Ramesh, talking like Ramesh, he starts to investigate carefully, writing down dates and names in his notebook. He copies down strange details from police reports and newspapers. He spends hours talking to the villagers. He listens closely, watching how they move, trying to find any lies or exaggerations. He starts to see something similar in all the disappearances, something scary that connects them all. The villagers, speaking quietly because they're scared, talk about strange things that happen before people vanish. They talk about a sudden, heavy quietness that falls over the village. It's so quiet, it feels like it's hard to breathe. Gap 2S. And then they hear it. The sound of a woman crying, sad and scary, coming from the deep, dark forest. This same thing happens again and again, a spooky warning before someone else disappears. People in Kaliganj still whisper about the night the earth stood still. It's a night they'll never forget, a night when the curse got stronger and took someone else. It started like any other night. The air smelled like rain, and the moon peeked through the clouds. Everyone was in the village square talking and laughing. Kids chased fireflies that looked like tiny stars. It felt normal, like they'd forgotten about the curse for a little while. It showed how strong people can be. Then everything went quiet, totally quiet. No more laughing, no more talking, no more playing. Even the bugs went silent. The air felt heavy, like something was pushing down on everyone, making it hard to breathe. Everyone felt scared. Their hearts beat fast, and they looked at the trees. The shadows there looked darker, like they were moving and alive, changing shape in the moonlight. The villagers talked, their voices quiet, a mix of being scared and respectful. They talked of strange things, things that didn't make sense.
They talked about sudden, heavy silences falling over the villages. Silences so deep, it felt like the air was buzzing, waiting for something to happen. A silence broken only by a faraway sound of a woman crying. Her sad sounds carried on the wind from the deep inside the spooky forests. They talked about shadows moving super fast, quick looks at figures hiding just out of sight. They felt like they were being watched, like something unseen was there, making them shiver. They talked about these things like they knew they were real. Not made-up stories, but things that happened to them. Things passed down through families. Things they knew because they lived on this land and knew its secrets.
Ramesh listened carefully. He wasn't sure he believed them, but he started to feel uneasy. At first, he thought their stories were just scary stories, but they all said the same kinds of things. It was creepy how similar their stories were, even though they were different people. It was like they were all talking about pieces of the same scary puzzle. A puzzle hidden under old stories and fear. A puzzle that pulled Ramesh deeper into the mystery. As Ramesh listened to the villagers' stories, he started to see how much they truly believed in the curse.
The villagers all said the same things happened before someone disappeared. First, everything would go quiet. The birds would stop singing, the leaves would stop rustling, even the insects would go silent. It was like the whole village was holding its breath. Then they would hear a woman crying in the distance, coming from deep within the cursed forest. They said it was a mournful, eerie sound, like the forest itself was crying.
This pattern, the silence, the crying, the disappearance, happened over and over. It was as if the curse was a cycle repeating itself throughout history. Ramesh, who always thought logically, struggled to understand these stories. Ramesh always thought silence was just no sound, like an empty space you could fill with facts and reasons.
But the village silence, it wasn't like that. It was alive. It felt like something pushing down on the village, squeezing all the air out, making everyone scared and jumpy. This silence was louder than any thunderstorm. It felt old and powerful, like something bad was holding the village prisoner. It didn't make sense. It whispered about things you couldn't know, things you shouldn't know. It started to break down my wall of facts. I didn't believe in ghosts and stuff, but this was different.
He'd been in quiet places before, an empty room, a street with no one around, but this was different. This silence felt heavy. It had a shape, almost a taste. It gave him chills, made his skin crawl. It whispered about things better left alone. Savitri's eyes were red from crying, and her face showed all the pain she carried. She held an old faded picture of her son. Her fingers touched it gently, full of love for him, sadness that he was gone, and a wish that things could be different. Ramesh listened, forgetting for a moment that he didn't believe these stories. Her sadness was so strong it felt like a weight in the room, making it hard to even breathe. Ramesh kept digging, and the more he found out, the heavier it felt. It was like a big, heavy weight pressing down on him, cracking the tough shell of disbelief he had built around himself. The villagers' tales, the ones he'd brushed off as just spooky stories, now sent shivers down his spine. He saw patterns, things happening over and over, and the real, bone-chilling fear hanging over the place. It all added up to something way scarier than he could have ever dreamed of. Ramesh, I came here looking for answers, but everything I find just shows me how much I know. This curse, I thought it was just a bunch of made-up stories, but now it's like it's crawling into my head, messing with what I believe. It's making me face the fact that there are things I just don't understand. He'd arrived in these villages thinking he knew better, but deep down he knew he wouldn't leave the same, and step 2S, the curse was sneaky, like a little worm getting into your brain, planting seeds of doubt that grew into pure terror. He'd ignored the villagers' fears for too long, trying to explain everything with logic and facts. But the truth he was starting to see wasn't about being logical. It was hidden in the darkness, where old, powerful forces whispered secrets in the wind, and where believing and reality mixed together until you couldn't tell the difference. As Ramesh went deeper into the spooky forest, he felt the past all around him. The scared villagers and their stories were just the beginning. The real curse was much older, hidden in forgotten stories and old ruins. People whispered about a lost city, Rajpur, the king's city. It was once a grand place, but now it was just a scary reminder of a happier time. Priya Rajpur. I read about it in old books. It's like a key, a special key that can help us understand the curse. It's like the ruins are whispering secrets about what happened here. Ramesh, who wasn't so sure about all this at first, decided to go with Priya to Rajpur. He knew that to stop the curse, they had to find out where it started. He felt nervous but also excited as they walked into the dark forest, their footsteps echoing in the quiet ruins. The trip to Rajpur felt spooky. The forest felt close, the air was thick and smelled like old plants. The little sunlight made weird shadows, making everything look scary. After walking for hours on old paths and broken steps, they came to a big open space. They gasped at what they saw.
Even with plants and time hiding parts of it, Rajpur was amazing. Broken walls, some really tall, showed how grand it once was. Fancy carvings on fallen pillars told of a time when art was everywhere.
Priya was so excited. She took pictures of every carving, every piece of old pottery. She touched the outlines of a lost city, trying to understand its past.
Even though I didn't believe all the stories, I felt the history of the place. I felt connected to the people who lived there long ago. Their lives were lost to time, but their stories still felt real. Gap 2S.
As Priya explored the old ruins, she got more and more excited. She found carvings on the walls of a building that looked like a temple. These carvings were different from anything she'd ever seen. The writing looked a little like ancient Sanskrit, but it was much older. The letters were fancy and complicated, almost like they were magic.
I spent hours carefully cleaning the dirt off the carvings. I traced the letters with my fingers and tried to understand what they meant. I realized these weren't prayers or stories about kings. They were much stranger and scarier. It was like someone wrote down a true story in stone. A story about betrayal, revenge, and a curse that lasted for centuries.
At first, Ramesh didn't believe Priya was finding anything interesting, but slowly he got interested in the mystery of the carvings. He always liked solving puzzles, and these carvings were the biggest puzzle he'd ever seen.
I watched Priya as she worked. She was concentrating so hard, and her fingers moved across the stone so easily. I really admired how dedicated she was to discovering the secrets of the past.
Priya carefully put the pieces of the inscription together like a puzzle. A scary story started to come out. It told about a rich city with a kind king, and everyone lived happily, but the king's best friend, his advisor, was greedy and wanted power. He betrayed the king.
The writing said the advisor made a secret deal with another kingdom. He promised them lots of money and control of the city if they helped him get rid of the king. The advisor attacked quickly and cruelly. The king was killed in his own home, his family was locked up, and his friends were killed too.
The advisor didn't enjoy his win for long. As the king died, he put a curse on the city. He asked the old powers of the land to get revenge for his murder and punish everyone who was against him. The curse, the writing said, would spread quickly like a fire, destroying the city, its people, and everyone who helped the advisor.
I didn't believe in the villagers' stories about curses. I thought they were just silly superstitions. But this writing on the stone showed something really bad happened here. Much worse than I thought. I felt a chill, a cold feeling down my back. Gap 2S.
The curse wasn't a sudden boom, but more like a slow-acting poison. It turned everyone against each other. Even friends became enemies. Priya, the writing tells of a priestess. She was very wise and powerful. She was the king's best advisor. She knew about the plan to kill the king. She warned him, but he didn't listen. The priestess was heartbroken and angry when the king was murdered. She used ancient magic and her sadness and anger to put a curse on the city. She cursed the people and the bad guys who killed the king to suffer forever. Priya. The writing describes a special ceremony. It happened in the middle of the city. It unleashed the priestess's powerful curse. Ramesh listened to Priya translate the writing. He felt scared. The curse wasn't just a story. It was real, and even after all this time, it was still powerful and scary, reaching far beyond the old city walls. Part 6. Trying to understand a clash of ideas. Ramesh Deshmukh. The writings on the walls were interesting, but I had to think about other reasons for what happened. Sometimes stories get mixed up with real events. People tell stories, and over time they change. Memories aren't always perfect. Ramesh knew that the people who lived there believed in curses and spooky things. Maybe the stories on the walls were just part of that. Ramesh Deshmukh. I talked to experts about rocks and old stuff. They said maybe an earthquake happened, or a big flood, or a bad sickness that made everyone sick. These things could turn a city into a ghost town. Those ideas made sense, but they didn't explain why everyone in the village told the same scary stories, or why bad things kept happening in the same way. It felt like two different ways of seeing things were crashing into each other. One way was all about facts and logic. The other way was about old beliefs, curses, and a past that wouldn't stay quiet. Ramesh Deshmukh. I was stuck between these two ways of thinking, and I started to wonder if I really knew anything at all. I always thought logic was the answer. But this curse, with its scary stories and its power over the land, made me question everything. The team left the cursed villages. What they saw there changed them. Ramesh, I used to be a skeptic. I didn't believe in these things. But after what I saw, I went back to my job as a reporter with a new respect for what people believe. There are mysteries hidden all around us. Arun, I still don't understand everything I saw, but I felt drawn back to nature. Now when I take pictures, I'm not just looking for pretty things, I'm looking for signs of a world we don't understand. Pandit Mahesh, what I saw tested my faith, but I still helped my community. I know now that some things are too powerful for us to understand. Some mysteries are better left alone. Priya wanted to learn more. She felt bad for the people affected by the curse. She decided to keep the memory of Rajpur alive. Her research revealed a forgotten piece of history. Her work showed how strong people can be. But the curse didn't go away. The villages were still scared. The people lived in fear, knowing something powerful was around them. The wind seemed to whisper secrets. Shadows danced in the corners of their eyes. Scary stories were passed down from grandparents to parents and parents to children. The curse was part of their lives. The curse of the villages showed that some hurts never go away. Some sad stories last for generations. Oh, some mysteries are better left undisturbed. The truth is somewhere between what we believe and what we don't, hidden in the shadows of the past.